Oh, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. How you all doing? Manchester United. Latest big and breaking news is that Dan Ashworth has been sacked by Manchester United. No, I don't think anybody's seen this coming. I was completely lost this morning when the news came out. Didn't really expect this to come out. Ineos obviously being and more so Sir Jim Ratcliffe being showing more ruthlessness. We're gonna get into that. We're gonna break that all down. We're also gonna talk about the past two matches because I haven't been able to discuss the Arsenal match and the match against Nottingham Forest, both which have been losses. Apparently, when Eric isn't around and can't do Red Devil recaps, we just go and lose matches. So I don't know what that's about, but obviously I'm kidding. But we'll get into that as well. We got some topical stuff, but really, we got to get into the Dan Ashworth stuff because this is huge. This is big. I see the fan base divided a lot on this. Some people are saying it's good. Some people are saying the club's in a mess. What is going on? They're upset. They're confused. So we'll break it all down. We'll get into it. I think it's going to be a good discussion. I have kind of my 2 cents on it. I haven't read and watched everything yet. So I haven't read through all the news. I just got through the basic stuff. So we're going to kind of go through it together and we'll talk about it. But before we get into that, please smash the like button for me because it helps the channel grow. It helps the channel get seen more. It helps the channel just become much bigger and we can grow the community. So if you smash the like button, I greatly appreciate it. And if you're new and you want to join our community, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when we go live because we are constantly going live every week. So yeah, come and join us and be a part of the community and come into our family. And before we get into the news, I see some of our people are in here from the community. Lyle is in here. Lines is in here as well. RSV is in here as well. So let me just get this going. I hope you guys are all doing well. RSV says, big up. I do have mixed feelings about this. Only time will tell whether it was ruthless or incompetence by Ineos. Yeah, and I think that's fair. And only time will tell exactly how good of a decision this was. I think a lot of people are jumping a little bit too far. From the news that we've gotten so far, right? There was clearly, obviously, problems there. There was arguments, which is obviously normal as well in this high level of football and stuff like that. Different ideas, different thought processes. Where I will start by saying, in my opinion, is that if Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Barada, and co. didn't like the job that he was doing, they didn't like him as a person, they didn't think that he was doing a good enough job, then I think the fact that they sacked him after 5 months, okay, from a PR, from a public perspective, I can see how a lot of people look at this and be like, what is going on at the club? This guy, we took so long to get him in. It took longer to get him in than he was employed. And I get all that. But at the same time, I can kind of look at it as of, if they're working with him every day and they don't like the job that he's doing and they don't think that he's doing a good enough job and they expect a better job to be done, then I think there's also an argument to be like, well, if he's not the right fit, it would be incompetent for them to keep him there solely because they just got him 5 months ago. You're not going to get everything right. They clearly, I think, are happy with other people that they've gotten in, but then Ashworth was somebody that they were not happy with. And the public is like this with a lot of things, right? Where, things happen and it looks bad from an outside perspective and they're like, they don't have a clue what they're doing, this and that. But I always try to put on like kind of my business hat and kind of look at it from their perspective. And I'm like, well, at the end of the day, they got to do what they have to do. They got to get shit done. When you're running high level stuff, it don't matter really what people are gonna kind of think and what people are gonna kind of look like, from the outside. the fact is we know what's going on the inside, and we need this to operate smoothly, and therefore we gotta get rid of this guy because he ain't the right fit. You know, we thought he wasn't. People are gonna, the world is burning because we haven't gotten the right guy, and it's like people act like it's not fixable. There's already names being thrown out there to replace him, so we're gonna get into all that, but I kind of just wanted to like put what my initial kind of thinking of this is on, and I haven't gone too far into depth in the news. I know there's been a lot of news going on about it, and we're gonna break it down and kind of get more of a live reaction about it. But yes, line saying, do we know what happened? Well, there's some indication of what has happened, and we're gonna break it down really into depth. Lines. Lyle saying it doesn't look bad, but from a business perspective, exact position changes on a dime. My thing is money we spent on getting him in, and now sacking him will cost money. Well, that's one of the things a lot of people have brought up, right? Is that, I kind of seen the sentiment pre-Ineos, United weren't ruthless enough. Now, we're kind of being more ruthless. Specifically, Sir Jim is very ruthless. And I bring this up, the show probably right before Ten Hag got sacked. And I talked about how Sir Jim Ratcliffe is known as a very ruthless man. In all of his businesses that he ever ran, he's known as a ruthless man. He would bring you in, he would sack you immediately if he didn't think you were up doing the job that he brought you in for. And this is, when you do operate a high level business and a successful business, these things are quite normal. Like Lyle has pointed out, at position changes on a dime, this is quite normal. The thing is, you have to couple it with the football aspect, and we are a club that is struggling for money. We are, doing cost-saving exercises, sacking people, cutting down the number of positions at Manchester United, raising ticket prices on fans, etc., because they're saying that we are trying to get the finances under control at Manchester United. And if people are looking at this like, yes, but you extended the contract of a manager that you ended up sacking 3 months later, which you could have just got rid of him and saved yourself money there. You then went and hired another manager to pay for that manager, to pay for the manager you fired. You paid for Dan Ashworth. You've now sacked him 5 months, and you're gonna, I don't know if they got to pay him to get him out, which I assume, and now you have to pay for somebody else to come in. So there's a lot of money being kind of wasted and spent that I understand fans aren't going to like too much, because they're looking at it like, you're wasting all this money here, yet we are the ones that are now going to suffer because we have to pay increased ticket prices to go watch our club. And I get that sentiment, but at the same time, again, from their perspective, you have to get these things right. Like it's cost effective if you get rid of Dan Ashworth and get somebody that can do a better job than him, because in the long run it will save the club money. In the short term, there's money being spent. But the hopefulness of it is that in the long run, because of the such a great job that person that would replace Dan Ashworth, the job that they would do down over the longer period will end up saving the club money. And that's probably the hope and prospect. But we got to see, like RSV said, we got to see where it takes us, because it could still go wrong. It could still be a bad decision. It could still be a bad replacement. It could still be a bad hire. And only time will really tell. But obviously, we got to get to the appointment first. So let's see who comes in to replace him. But, mistakes have to be made. Well, listen, mistakes, it's the only way you learn. You can't get everything right. You're not perfect. Nobody is perfect at anything. A famous singer that is, Ed Sheeran, for example, when he was first learning how to do things, you don't think he made mistakes? You don't think he stumbled along his way before he got to fame? I'm sure he still makes mistakes every even at this current moment, you know, so mistakes are there to always be made. You have to learn from them, and you can't get everything perfect. But the point is, when you make a mistake, you have to learn from it, and you have to be able to adjust accordingly. Nobody is perfect. Nobody gets everything 100% right, 100% correctly. So, RSV saying, apparently he recommended to the board to extend Erik ten Hag contract in the summer, and he always maintained a great relationship with Potter and Southgate. I would be very pissed off if it was Omar leaving United. Well, yes. And we're going to get to that. Axe is in here as well, saying, yesterday I was devastated watching the match. Almost started to cry. Well, I wasn't able to watch the match, really, because I was working, and I didn't watch the Arsenal match either. So I can't go into too much depth over the 90 minutes. I seen, you know, the highlights. I don't understand the Onana goal. The second goal, I don't understand Onana. I don't understand how that's gone in. I don't understand the third one as well. You know, to me, I don't understand how nobody clears it off of the line. You know, so we'll break that down towards the back end of the show. But you know, Axe is saying, look what Ineos has done to the club, rising the ticket prices, not sacking the manager, hiring people just to fire them later on. How many times do I have to say it? They are incompetent. Well, I don't really necessarily believe that right now, because this club, they inherited a mess. Therefore, you have to navigate through the mess, which means that it's not going to be smooth sailing. I don't think anybody that took over this club, it would be smooth sailing. It is all in processes. Some things you're going to get right, like player signings and appointees to the club, to the board. And other things, they're not going to be right. It's going to be the wrong person, the wrong player. But the point is, when you get those things wrong, you have to be able to adjust and switch from there. And that, to me, shows me if they're actually really competent or not. It's not necessarily, obviously, you want to get more things right than wrong, but it's about when you get those things wrong, how do you handle that situation? How do you navigate that? And do you end up rectifying that sort of mistake on your second try? Because, yeah, I just don't think, you know, the fact that you inherit such a mess, there's no way that there's not going to be a lot of bumps in the road to try and figure it out. And I understand I understand the raising of the ticket prices. I get that's going to piss people off, and I understand that, and nobody wants that. You know, even for me, that I can't necessarily go there. And if I do go there, it's a one-off thing that I go for a weekend, you know, and watch a match. And I will pay whatever the price is because I'll go and watch it. But for the ones that, you know, pay a standard fee, and it's always been that fee, to people that, you know, they don't have a lot of money, and they struggle in their life, it's obviously not a good thing. But I think what the hope is for that is that while in the short term, maybe they are being raised, that hopefully when the club sorts itself out and gets into a better place where we're not struggling for money, where we're not missing out on Champions League or European places every season or every other season, when the club is actually in a better place, then I feel like those ticket prices would probably come lower. But I get people aren't going to be happy about it, and I get people are going to be pissed about it. But I can see and understand why they've done things like that. Because at the end of the day, while it is a football club, it is also a business, and we have to balance stuff out. So, and we are not in a good position financially. You know, I admire the ruthless part. Had we kept him on for 2 or 3 years, and from Ashworth's position, nothing changes, then we would be more pissed. Well, that's the thing, like, right? And that's really the argument, I think, that, you know, a lot of people are like, well, 5 months, you spent longer than you took to get him in, than he was actually at the club. And it just looks bad. It looks incompetent, right? It looks bad. It looks like they don't know what they're doing. But in my opinion, if he really wasn't doing a good job, and he really wasn't the correct fit, it would be more incompetent, in my opinion, to keep him there for 2 or 3 years, because you spent that money to get him, and it would look bad in the eyes of the public. And I feel like that's what Manchester United prior to Ineos were doing, is that they wouldn't do something like this because they were worried about the public sentiment and the PR. So Jim clearly is not worried about that because he wants to try and get things right. Now, if he gets things right or doesn't get things right is a different story. But clearly, from his actions, he's at least trying. Him, Omar Barada, and Jason Wilcox, they're trying to get things right. They're trying to make things operate in the correct manner. So you know, I think you got to do what you got to do. 5 months. It took Ashworth 5 months to get sick of this shitty new structure. Well, listen, it doesn't matter. I mean, when I look at it, if it's just Ashworth, then it's just Ashworth. Like, he's sick of it. Omar is fine. Jason Wilcox is fine. There was obvious problems between Dan Ashworth and the rest of them. So he obviously didn't fit there. So it is what it is. I don't believe the system is a disadvantage at all. Lucky you didn't watch the last 2 matches. Keep focus on your work and your life and contribute to society. This Man United is shameful. Well, we're gonna talk about that on the back end. But my thing to that would be, we're gonna have to go through this. This is necessary. This pain, these losses are necessary if we are to get to where we gotta go. If we are to get to where we need to go, because I keep looking at Liverpool, at Manchester City, and at Arsenal that have all gone through these periods, and they all suffered in their initial periods. So I really do believe that you need to keep the manager, and that's why we're going to talk. That's why the other part of the title is what Ineos has to do to succeed, or what Man United have to do to get success. And I have an idea on this. So, but obviously, let's talk about this. Let's get this out of the way, and then we'll circle back to the matches and more general Manchester United stuff. But obviously, Dan Ashworth leaves Manchester United after 5 months as sporting director. It was a mutual. They coined it as mutual. So I'm just gonna go through all the news. There's a bunch of news. There's too much to bring up on the screen, so I'm just gonna read it and go through it and comment as you want to go. And do what you got to do. So Dan Ashworth's departure was decided in a meeting with Omar Barada after the match against Nottingham Forest. Sir Jim Ratcliffe played a significant role in this decision. Sir Jim Ratcliffe is not happy at all with last summer's strategy, which is interesting. Manchester United made the statement, official statement, saying Dan Ashworth will be leaving his role as sporting director of Manchester United by mutual agreement. We would like to thank Dan for his work and support during a transitional period for the club and wish him well for the future. The updates that followed the official statement was United sources say it was a very difficult decision. Add that the club have been putting together a new structure at some pace and learning as they go. Clearly, things didn't work out with Ashworth. That's coming from Chris Wheeler. Apparently, an emergency meeting took place at Carrington. Following that, this then came out from actually the United stand, saying that Dan Ashworth conducted himself with integrity and decency throughout his time at Manchester United. United have been building a new sporting structure as of late, with the process moving at pace, and the club are learning what the best structure is to get United winning again. Well, yes, and that's why it's part of the process, and we can judge them as it goes along. But for me, at the end, it's more of the ultimate thing. Again, they inherited a mess. It's a difficult thing. It's the same thing for Amorim. He's sort of inherited a mess with the players, and Ineos have a job to do there to help him. And it's something that they have to do that hasn't been done 12 years at this club. With any manager, not even Erik ten Hag. And they oversaw at least, half a season, a little bit longer than half a season with him there. But Dan Ashworth felt sidelined from major decisions almost from day one. The tipping point was the appointment of Ruben Amorim when he favored a British coach. Apparently, Andrea Berta is an option to replace Dan Ashworth. That's coming from Demazio. Jason Wilcox will take over Dan Ashworth's role in the short term while the club decides what to do next, and that's from Times Sport. And there was some other news that I know that for a fact, and I think it got kind of skipped, so I want to go back and so yes, so Dan Ashworth felt sidelined from big decisions on Manchester United almost from day one, with Omar Barada and Sir David Brailsford calling the shots. The tipping point was when Ruben Amorim appointment. Ashworth wanted the British coach Gareth Southgate. Well, I'm gonna say this right now and right there. Maybe it's not good if the sporting director is getting overpowered by Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I mean, from Omar Barada and Sir Dave Brailsford, but I mean, more so maybe Sir Dave Brailsford, because his position's kind of weird. But Omar Barada is the CEO, so he should be overpowering him, of course. But they need to be able to work together, right? And Omar clearly has his ideas, and Dan Ashworth had his ideas, and they didn't align up in any sort of way, in any shape, because they're looking at Ruben Amorim, and Ashworth wanted Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter. Now, I will say that regardless of everything else, Dan Ashworth wanting and advocating to bring Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter to Manchester United is literally a sackable offense by itself. I'm sorry, but like if I was there and I was in charge and this guy came to me and was like pleading the case to get Gareth Southgate in as manager, I would have sacked him from his position right there, because I've been like, you clearly are not aligned with what we're trying to do if you're trying to bring Gareth Bloody Southgate to Manchester United. Yeah, like I don't know what you think this is, but there is no way in hell that Gareth Southgate should ever come near any, not even a Premier League team. I don't even think he's good enough for a Premier League team. So that for me right there, if that is true and that is accurate, that to me is a sackable offense by itself, regardless of whatever else has gone on and disagreements behind the scenes and stuff like that. I would have sacked him right there just for that, because there's no way in hell that that would ever happen. I would never allow that to happen. So it's been pointed out Ineos' first 10 months at Manchester United, they extended Erik ten Hag's contract and then sacked him, costing millions. They appointed Dan Ashworth, sacked him, costing millions. Unprecedented ticket price rises, mass redundancies, overseeing worst on-field results since 1980s, 28 leagues, 28 league games, 35 points from takeover. But yeah, again, this is a process. We're in year one of it. We got to see where it goes. It could start off bad and it could turn out good, or it could just be complete shit the entire way. But again, we gotta see where we get with that. Dan Ashworth wanted Gareth Southgate or Eddie Howe. Listen, I think Eddie Howe's okay. I actually think he's a pretty good manager, but Gareth Southgate, no chance in hell that he should ever come near Manchester United. I don't care. And apparently Lewis Nani has retired from football. So shout out to Lewis Nani. I got two kits upstairs signed by Lewis Nani when he came here to America with Ferguson. And that's just a sidebar, obviously, but yes. What is the chat saying? Axe saying we have to be realistic. At this point, the team plays like shit. New manager, new system, give it time, okay. But at this point, things are horrible. Well, again, I'm here for the short term. I will take the short term pain if it leads to the long term gain, and I think that's the way you gotta kind of go about it, and just kind of hope that the long term gain does actually get about. But obviously, we need to see some sort of a progression over that period. Like there has to be a progression from now to the end of the season. Like, we have to see things progress in some sort of manner. Obviously, I don't like. Does that mean that things are gonna be perfect? Does that mean things are gonna be, good enough to where we don't have to necessarily worry? No, because I think it takes longer than that, and plus there are things that need to happen at Manchester United. And my number one thing that needs to happen at Manchester United for the success, and I was talking about this the other day with my father, um, is Ineos have to do the job. The hierarchy need to do the job of that. You have your manager, you have your guy, right? He's going to play his system. He's going to play his style. He's not going to change the style. He's not going to change the system. As long as he's doing his duties as a head coach, the other duties properly, right? You need to be smart enough and you need to identify that, hey, this guy is actually doing a good enough job where, okay, some of the results may be bad, but it's not down to him being incompetent or out of his depth as a head coach, as a manager. It's down to the players not being able to play the system, or they're just simply just not good enough to be at Manchester United. They are simply not good enough to be in a team that is consistently in the top four, fighting for trophies, and playing at the highest level. And therefore, we have to move those players on. Like, for me, Ineos, they need to, they really need to clear some of these players out. Like, they need to do that for Amorim, because when I look at the other when I look at Arsenal, when I look at Liverpool, and when I look at Manchester City, specifically under Pep Guardiola, I mean, even Manchester City building up to Pep Guardiola, they kind of did the same thing over and over and over again. They just kept increasing the level, right? They started with Robinho, then they got Adebayor, then they got, this player, and they got that player, and they just kept going up and up and up and up and until they got to where they are. And they changed managers along the way as well. But that's why you need to have the structure at the top needs to be organized to progress the project of the club. But really, they need to get rid of some players at this club, and they need to bring in progressible players. They need to bring in players that can, like I said the other day, we need like 2 more wingers, like Amad Diallo. We need like 2 more wingers like Amad. Great work rate, defensive, offensive, plays for the team. You can tell he's like sort of a quiet person in terms of like, he just wants to go on the pitch, he wants to play, and he wants to do his job and help the team, and he has good ability. And I was like, we don't have that past him. Garnacho is young, and you know, he's got some issues you gotta deal with. But I was like, other than that, I was like, Rashford ain't that, and Anthony definitely ain't that. And then other than that, that's it. Amorim really wants to be using wingers in the wing back position. He doesn't want to be playing Delo and Malacia there. He uses wingers in those positions, but we have to get to that spot first. So, but let me get to the chat before I get too carried away. We have a new manager because it was shit. So yes, he needs time. Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. Like, he needs help from Ineos. They need to cycle out some of these players, and they need to get players. The recruitment has to be good, and we got to sell players that are not good enough, that are not progressible, that don't have. Like, this is why I keep saying, like, I understand, like, for me, like, Harry Maguire, like, I would sell him. Lindelof, I would sell him. Luke Shaw, I would sell him. Rashford, I mean, he keeps going back and forth. I can't make a decision. I'd probably sell him at this point. Because I just don't understand. I don't understand what he is anymore. I don't understand. He has a good game, then he comes on and, he's on the bench against Arsenal, and he comes on looking all mopey dopey and like not interested, and I'm just like, I don't get this guy. I don't get this guy as a footballer. Like, I don't get you. Like, I really don't. So I would move him on. I'm missing Ericsson's got to go. Casemiro's got to go. Um, I don't know about Xerxes. There's big question marks over him. If that was even a good decision to bring him in, maybe it wasn't. But there's a numerous amount of players. Like, we gotta get rid of these players. Johnny Evans. I mean, he doesn't hurt nobody, but like a little bit of a waste of a wage. We can get somebody a bit younger or something that can be more fit, more available, has better legs. And I'm probably missing one or two players, but that's off the top of my head. But like they got to do that, because if they don't do that, then Amorim's gonna fail and the project will fail. The project will fail if they can't clear these players out and get in progressible players that can grow. Like, when I look at it, like, I think Ahmad is a progressible player. Garnacho is a progressible player. Mainu is a progressible player. Rasmus Højlund is a progressible player. Yoro is a progressible player. I think De Ligt is only 24. He's still pretty progressible as well. Maz is established, but he's good. Lisandro's in, the middle of his career, so he's all right. I think, Anthony is just total waste of space and time, so he's got to be out. Rashford, I think, I don't get him anymore. Mason Mount is one that I would like to wait and see if he can prove to us that he stays fit. If he can't stay fit and he gets injured like another 2 or 3 times this season, then I think you got to move him on. That's like 10 players. So, Lyle's saying under Amorim, I see some progress. Maybe that's just me. I've seen a lot of progress under Ineos so far, but hey, no, listen, these things take time, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be mess ups. There's going to be setbacks, right? But you got to, it's how they handle the situation, and it's about, can they keep going forward? Or does it get to a point where it stalls out or it starts going backwards? You know what I mean? And people can have their doubts and they can have their opinions, and, they can feel a certain way about it. But for me personally, I just go along with it until it hits a point where it's clear of like, this is actually working or this has actually failed. And then when it's failed or whatever, then it's time that we need to change things in whatever aspect. But, for me, even Amorim, like, there's obviously things I'm looking for Amorim to do, but and I want expectations to happen, but it's clear that this mess is gonna keep happening for the rest of the season. Yeah, I mean, it's not really going to level itself out. I think we're gonna get some games where we play good or we get some good results, and then we're gonna play games where we suffer, like against Arsenal. And to be fair, I didn't see the whole Arsenal match. I saw bits and pieces, but for me, overlooking the whole thing, and I understand that like the first half we were better than the second half, and the second half we were worse. But even to go to team like Arsenal, who's further along in their journey than we are, they're in a higher place than we are, right? To go to the Emirates and to have 50-50 possession of the entire game, almost. I think it was 51-49. They had 6 shots on target. We had 2. We had more passes than them, or stuff like that. And we lost the game by 2 corners. They tied Fulham today by scoring a corner. I don't think I think for a team like that to not, the fact that they didn't completely 100% dominate us at home, for the club that we are right now and that we are in a mess and we are inconsistent, I don't think is actually a bad thing. It's disappointing that we didn't win. It's disappointing that we conceded 2 corners and lost the game in that manner, of course. But when I look at Arsenal is above us and we want to get to where Arsenal is and then overtake them, I don't think that's bad. The Nottingham Forest one is, again, they are performing better than us. Now, in the grand scheme of things, they are a much smaller club than us, but they have been performing way better than us this season. And it's just, it's one of those things where, again, it's just really bad. Like you're playing at home and you've somehow conceded 3. You've made 2. You gave up 2 really shit goals. You gave up 1 in the first 2 minutes of the game or whatever it was. Like, those things cannot happen, but they are going to happen until we sort our shit out and get our shit together. Um, you know, and I do understand this. Like, I do really understand this. Like, this is going to be, it's going to be painful. But I do see improvements in the shape, the ideas. I think we're scoring a little bit more. Although it's not there yet. But I really do believe that we're gonna have to just weather the storm. I mean, Ruben Amorim's talked about the storm, and he said it was coming. And I don't think it's like a one storm type of thing. I think the storm comes in batches, right? Where it looks like it lightens up a little bit, and you think you're gonna get past it, and it comes back in heavy, and then it lightens up again until one day that it's no longer there. But I really do think it's going to be a big process. So Axe says he personally has no trust in Ruben Amorim, who seems to me like Eric Ten Hag too. But okay, I will give him time and exercise my masochistic tendencies. Well, yeah, listen, I mean, you don't have to necessarily like him, and you don't have to necessarily think he's good, right? But what I will say is that, we just got to see where it goes. Again, I take things as they go. I like the guy. I think his system is very good. I think it can succeed, but I'm not here saying that it's going to 100% succeed, because I'm very aware that it could fail. And it could fail for numerous reasons. And it could go very bad, because there's no guarantee. Why would there be any guarantee? Why would he be any different than the other 6 managers before him? Just because of Ineos. Again, Ineos is still trying to figure out how to run the club properly, and they're trying to There's a lot of navigation going on at Manchester United, which is a big problem, because it's going to lead to inconsistencies. But my thing at the end of the day is, we need to start somewhere, and we need to do something. Because I look at it as, prior to Ineos, we weren't doing anything. So it's like, listen, Ineos might fail. They might not get it right. But the way I am, I'm like, I can at least go with these guys. And okay, it's not perfect. But I was like, I can at least go with them, because they're at least trying. They're at least trying. Before them, we had nobody. Nobody was trying. They were bullshitting us. They were full of lies, and they were really bad. And they had no clue what they were doing. At least these guys are trying to do something. They're trying to fix the club. They're trying to make shit better. Will they succeed? Who knows? Nobody knows, really. I mean, people can say they know, and that's fine, but they don't know 100%. Right now, there's some issues, problems that they're gonna need to sort out, that they gotta get shit going. But I think the fact that they even installed the proper football structure is a huge step from where we were in the past. So, imagine how much misunderstanding there is at the top. How in the right mind who in the right mind would be motivated and confident to work for such a business? We wonder why players are a mess. Grace is here as well. The chat just skipped like a whole shit, a whole thing. Amir is here. Amir is saying we are trust Amorim. You saying you are in love with Ineos and their chosen manager, but only time will tell how good these people are at a football. My bet, not trustworthy, but okay, let's watch matches and imagine they play well. I don't know if you're talking to me or you're saying that to somebody else, but I'm not in. I wouldn't say I'm in love with Ineos. They are the I wanted Qatar. I advocated for Qatar. I actually wanted the Sheikh to take over because I wanted the money, because I think it would have been an easier way to fix. But those things are out of my hand, and I'm not going to take it against Ineos because, again, I already know that the Glazers had the Glazers' hands all over it, and they were never going to give it to Qatar. And there's nothing we could do about it. The only thing we could do is hope that Ineos are actually good and do a good job. And that's what I'm doing. I'm backing them because I'm hoping that they do a good job. You know, and I think they can do a good job, but they're the only hope we got. Hey, like newsflash, if Ineos fail, Manchester United are once again fucked. I don't want that for the club. I don't. So I want Ineos to do a good job, and I hope they do. I'm not gonna fight Ineos every step of the way until they do things where I think it's very bad and very wrong, and then I will come out and I will call them for what it is, if that's what it is. Just like I do with every manager. I gave Ten Hag 3 seasons, 3 years. I backed him every step of the way. I fought behind him. You know, people attacking him, people online saying he's not good enough, people I know saying, you know, he's a bold fraud, this and that. And I would argue for 30 minutes, backing him, saying it's not him, it's the players, it's this and that. Until it gets to a point where I'm like, well, no, he's got to go. He's got to go, and that's it. But I this is what I do. This is how I am. So they are in a position. I'm trying to give them as much time as possible. If shit hits the fan, then it's time to make decisions on if you're gonna, you know, if we need change, if we need something. And they're well aware as well. So, Grace says she stands with Dan Ashworth. Southgate was the right choice. Ineos out. It doesn't sound good, that, but we need to imagine what they bought. Short-term pain with Eric Ten Amorim to get Southgate long-term. No, Southgate ain't coming. Southgate's not coming because Dan Ashworth was the guy that wanted Southgate, and Dan Ashworth is gone. So, Southgate ain't coming. She's joking. Lions, she's always joking. You know she's joking. Axe saying that he agrees with Grace. Also, let her marry Delo and help him make his mind. He plays awful lately. Anthony, better than Ahmad, who's with me. Grace, how much wine have you drinking today? Nobody's with you on that. Lionheart's saying Amorim and the team need time on the training pitch. Well, that's another aspect, right? They're learning during matches. That's another aspect. And I'm sure he can't wait for the Christmas period to finish. Well, that's also one of the things. That's kind of why I don't want to say it, because nobody likes to hear it. But I do think that even this initial period of Amorim coming in, right? What is it? Like 7 November, December, January, February. So like 6-7 months. This initial period is 6-7 months for Amorim. For him, in a certain way, I don't think it's 100% completely, but for him in a certain way, it's almost like a free hit, because the players are really getting exposed. I don't think anybody's looking at Amorim right now, and I don't think anybody's saying like his tactics are bad, decisions he's doing. I see some people questioning the constant rotation, but again, I think there's something big there, because Ten Hag was doing it before he got sacked, and it was a big change from last season, and Amorim has come in and he's rotating the shit out of them. There's something wrong with their fitness, in one way or another, which has a concern as to why there's so much rotation. I don't know if they're worried about injuries. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's clearly something up with the players' fitness. So there's that aspect. It's just it's a bloody mess. It's a bloody mess. Does Delo want Real Madrid? I need a holiday. I don't think so. I heard that story was fake, Grace. That Real Madrid was looking at the low. I heard that story was fake and that it wasn't real. So, I don't think you have to worry right now about that. Amorim has to motivate the current squad and make them play in a suitable system. End the discussion. We are 10 points above relegation. Um, I mean, yeah. I don't think I I don't know if part of I don't know if part of the problem is really motivation per se. I would say it's more of ability. Um, I think it's more ability wise. Maybe it has to do with some motivation as well. I think their mentality is a little bit shocking. Um, but they need to motivate themselves as well too. Like they need to be able to want to play. But I don't think he necessarily has a problem motivating. I don't think he'll have a problem necessarily himself motivating players. I think some of those players they have their own issues, which is why I'm saying like Ineos have to do. Listen, to me, the whole big thing is when we get to the summer, if Ineos don't clear out a bunch of these players, and I understand that you can't do probably all of that in one summer, right? I do understand that you probably would have to split it, and you have to make the determining factor of who needs to absolutely go right now in this period, and then who can we sort of use in the upcoming season and then look to move them on in the following summer window. Because I really feel like you got to do it over 2 summer windows to get that done. Because I think if you need to get rid of 10 players, you can't get rid of 10 players in one summer window. I would expect to get rid of 5 or 6, something like that. And the other window you got to do it in that window. And obviously bringing replacements for them. And my thing is, if Ineos doesn't do that, then the whole project is it'll fail. It'll fail. So if we get to the summer and they don't clear out some of these players, that obviously have to go, then the whole project is you can just throw it in the bin. It'll literally fail and it'll literally be a disaster. So they have to do that, otherwise that project is dead in the water right there. Because it'll be the same thing that the Glazers were doing. And then Richard Arnold and Ed Woodward. It'll be the same shit. So that for me, they got to do that. If they don't do that, there's no project. The project is set to fail automatically. If we had Southgate, we would be in a title race. Grace, how much wine did you have today? um, well, listen. Um, your banter is really confusing. I can't tell which is which anymore. No, I could tell. I could tell. I could tell. When I read it, I could tell. You know why? Because I kind of just read everything in a sarcastic manner from Grace until she says something that seems like it's more. And usually she says like she'll ask a serious question. Like I could tell. I could tell. I could read Grace. Um, Axe is saying Amorim's tactics are wrong. Well, okay, fair enough. But again, like but I would put you in the minority, Axe. Like out of the entire fan base, I don't think anybody's really right now. Nobody's really looking at Amorim and his tactics. I did see 1 or 2 people, but the majority of people are. Everybody's really looking at the players, and everybody's really analyzing the players and going at the players, and no one's really like attacking Amorim at this point because they understand that number one, this is going to take time. Number two, he's come in the middle of the season. Can't have any real training with the players because of the period that we're in. It's a tough period for him to be in. So I feel like everybody's sort of just giving him kind of like this free pass. Obviously, like we want the results and we need better performances. And he's going to have to show us that he is developing somewhere in some aspect. Um, but most of the blame and most of the anger is going directly towards the players. It's not going towards Amorim at this current moment. Um, Fries and cabbage, you just need ice cream and you have a nutritious breakfast. Who eats cabbage? I don't think I've ever had cabbage, ever. And I don't think I ever will. Um, Fries and ice cream, that's an American Wendy's thing. You go to Wendy's, you get the French fries, you get the little frosty, you take the fry, you dip it in the frosty, and you eat that. And that's good. That's good. I don't think that goes on over there in the UK, but okay, I'm the 1% for now. Wait and watch how this percentage grows. Well, it might very well grow if it doesn't improve, right? Again, I don't think you're like. I'm not saying you're like wrong. I'm just saying that like it has to improve, right? It has to improve, Axe. If it doesn't improve, obviously it's gonna flip like it always has done. Um, and rightfully so, because we need to be shown signs of progression. We need to be we need to be shown that things are actually happening, like, and that improvement is being made in aspects. If it's not, and we start going further backwards, then there's a cause for worry, and things will flip very, very quickly. Um, Sincerely, cabbage is really good if cooked well, especially with sour cream, cheese, and mayonnaise. I don't know, but I'm not a big vegetable person anyway, so and maybe it's just me. I'm sure people love cabbage. But I don't even think I've ever had it. Um, but yeah, I don't like too many vegetables. Um, oh, and I think there's some other news. That was really old. Um, okay, so this other news that is coming out, maybe it's repeated, maybe it's not. So, because I follow so many aggregators that sometimes some of them are really late with the news, and some of them. So this news actually just came out like 25 minutes ago. Um, Gary Neville. Can somebody explain to me what Gary Neville's doing on NBC Sports? Because I thought he was like strictly with Sky Sports. So can he go on both? Because like he's been on NBC Sports all weekend. And when I found out he was in the studio, I was like, what the hell is he doing on NBC Sports? Um but Neville said, I'm really shocked about Dan Ashworth's departure, and it's going to need a lot of explaining. The statement that the club put out is really poor. All right. Um, Fair enough. I don't necessarily feel that way, but fair enough. You do. Um, in searching, this came from The Athletic 26 minutes ago. In searching for a replacement for Eric Ten Hag as manager, Ratcliffe wanted to hear ideas from Ashworth due to his expertise at building structures. Ashworth, it is claimed, did not provide clear, compelling arguments for who to bring in. Okay. Suggestions included Eddie Howe, Marco Silva, and Thomas Frank. Graham Potter was another name mentioned by Ashworth, possibly as an interim until um, the end of this season. Well, so that news that we got back then, that was all accurate in terms of that's who was being linked to our club. Thomas Frank was being linked. Graham Potter and Gareth Southgate were all being linked. So those were all from Dan Ashworth. And that was all coming out from Dan Ashworth. It actually makes sense because I'm not trying to indicate anything here, but he is English. And the English press were putting out these things. And how they were getting that information, I do not necessarily know. But usually, the English journalists have connection to somebody that is English. And it's not usually somebody that's foreign that has these connections to these journalists one way or another. Dan Ashworth's the managers. Yep, we went through that. Radcliffe had met Amorim the week before, as United were in Istanbul facing Fenerbahce, with Sir David Brailsford also present. Radcliffe likes to understand big decisions before signing off, and he got on well with Amorim, whose charisma has made an early impression on fans and players. Radcliffe felt Ashworth should have been much more assertive in targeting a new head coach and should have looked beyond those people he already knew. So clearly, Sir Jim Ratcliffe had a very um he had a very big problem with the sort of, I guess, limited and indecision of of um of Dan Ashworth. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily wrong in feeling or thinking that, number one, he had to be more assertive, more conclusive with the decision, not well, we have these guys, I don't really know, blah blah blah. Like, he's kind of sitting on the fence. In that position, you can't sit on the fence. You need to know exactly what you want, and you need to know what you're doing. At the same time, all those people that he wanted to bring in, he knows every single one of them. So he was kind of looking in the box and not looking outside of the box, which is another problem as well. It's something that you don't really want. So, and Axe is saying farther backwards, we are closer to relegation than first place. We are really living on the edge now. But that has to come with the consequences of that. We clearly what it has to come with the fact that it was going backwards under Ten Hag already. Like, Ten Hag started this, and it happened under him. He started the season off in the bad position, and we've changed the manager, and the manager now is in a very difficult position because he's come into a period where there's 3 matches a week, and he can't get the training that you would need to that you get when you come in at the end of May or the beginning of June, and you have that period before the season starts to get the basics down. So we're doing it as we're playing matches. So it is a mess, but that you would hope that it kind of settles itself out as it goes. But it's gonna be bumpy throughout the rest of this season. Just because it has to be, cannot be in any other way. But the point is that we get through this season's going to be a very rough season. I've already accepted it. It's not, I said the show last week, I said top 4 was still there. I don't think we'll make top 4 because I just don't think it's possible in the problems that the squad has, the shit that Amorim has to deal with, that he can't get the players into the proper training with all these matches. I just think that it's impossible for him to get the proper thing. I also kind of look back to the history of, like, when Fergie came and we were in a similar position when he was hired, that season didn't improve in any way. We finished like mid-table or something like that. I wish Richard was here so he could tell us exactly where it was, because he was there when it happened. But I think we finished like 12th or something. So if history tells us that as well, I kind of expect the rest of the season to be a mess. I've already accepted it. The point is that what I'm looking for is, after this season, we should be in a better position for the next start of next season, and then we really need to see how far we can push that up. But this season is obviously and clearly already a mess. We just got to try and weather it the best as possible. And if we can progress in, cup competitions, that's really our best hope of right now. Unless we get a little bit lucky, some things click and somehow we go on a run. But I really don't. It's very, very difficult for that to happen. Very, very difficult that that's going to happen. Grace saying, let's forget about football and we should all do a YouTube come dine with me. Who makes the best cabbage dish edition? If next season will also be bad, you should sign that petition to bring back McTominay. Well, yeah, maybe we have to do that. Ashley Young and Welbeck. Grace, you didn't finish your comment. What else is this other news? Sir David Brailsford, Omar Brada, and Jason Wilcox addressed MUFC players and staff at Carrington today, going through the turbulence experienced with Dan Ashworth's departure and why they felt the change was necessary. So that's also another interesting thing. That was the emergency meeting that they called. A friction was also apparent when Ashworth proposed bringing in a data company to evaluate the candidates to replace Ten Hag. Ratcliffe was said to have reacted badly, countering that it was Ashworth's job to know such matters rather than outsource, while also making him question United's in-house capabilities. See that. Radcliffe felt Ashworth should have been much more assertive in targeting a new head coach and should have looked beyond those already. He was also said to have raised eyebrows at Ashworth taking a holiday on Amorim's second day at Carrington. Well, it's clearly, regardless of how you feel about it, or what opinion you hold of it, there's clearly issues going on behind the scenes that we weren't privy to, that we are now getting information on about it here. Dan Ashworth did not provide clear, compelling arguments who to bring in. So essentially, he just made up a list and basically handed to them, and they were like, "All right, but who's like the number one target?" And he was just like, "I don't know, just pick one." I mean, you can't really operate like that. Like that doesn't work in that manner. Like, like when you make a Christmas list, you don't just put it in any order. You put your Christmas list, you put the number one thing at the top, right? Like kids, like, and they make the Christmas list, like they put the number one most wanted thing, the thing that they want the most and they love the most, they put it at the top of the list. They don't just put it anywhere in the list and they're like, "Here, get me any of these things." They ask for it in a specific order. And this reads like he basically made a list and they were like, "All right, but like which one is the one that you recommend the most?" And he just kind of shrugged his shoulders and was like, "Eh." So, you know, that can't be happening. Jason Wilcox has struck up a good rapport with Ruben Amorim, interim director of recruitment Christopher Vivell, and interim performance director Sam Erith could see their jobs become permanent. Well, if they're doing a good job, then make them permanent. Jason will, yeah, okay, got that. Aiden. The news still coming out. Just Eric signs it. Bring back Ashley Young and Danny Welbeck. No. Ratface was just no more money for analysts. Look what big of a mess and the structure is. Well, we'll see if that's 100%, if he was wrong or right about that, because I would assume the person that they bring in, and let's see who it is, because there was a list of people, which I can no longer find because I don't know what happened to it exactly. But I did see a list earlier that it was somebody that was talked about before Dan Ashworth, which is Andrea Berta, but there was also some other people that were already mentioned on the list. Let's see who they hire. And if that person comes in and they make sort of a similar suggestment, that means that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was wrong, because clearly then it's 2-1. The only thing is that obviously is that that is his expertise. So like you can make the argument, well, who's Sir Jim Ratcliffe to kind of decide that should be his job and that we don't need a data company to analyze that stuff. That's beyond me. I don't know. I'm not an expertise in that field, so I can't say 100% if he's right or wrong. Well, let's see what happens with the people that come here. Listen, he doesn't like him lying. It is what it is. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to, but he doesn't like. You know, clearly doesn't like him. So lying. I asked Santa for mushrooms for Christmas. What kind of mushrooms, Grace? I think I need to be more specific because I don't like vegetables. What kind of mushrooms, Grace? We're getting worried about you, Grace. You're saying crazy things like bringing Ashley Young and Danny Welbeck back, and you're talking about mushrooms. What kind of mushrooms are you asking Santa Claus for? Uh, uh, listen, Axe, I get that, and I get it's bad, but you kind of have to wrap your head around. I mean, well, like, listen, I can't tell you what to do, but the only advice that I could give you is that you kind of have to just you have to try and come to terms with it as best as possible. You know, and you gotta kind of let some of it go. I mean, we've clearly fallen. No, I'm a little bit more relaxed and I'm a little bit more calm about it. I feel like I used to be very emotional, and I used to get very emotionally exhausted, like you do. Um, but in my head, in my brain, in my mind, like it's been 12 years. And it's very clear that we've gone very far away from where we were. And it's going to take some time to get out of this mess. But for the time being, we're in the mess. And we're going to be disappointed. We're going to be let down. Uh, but we just need to hope, and we need to continue to soldier on through this period. I mean, this. I always kind of just look back to the history of Manchester United. There was some very high of highs, and there's very low of lows, and that's what makes Manchester United Manchester United. This perseverance of there's periods in the club's history where it was very, very bad. It was very, very dark times, but we eventually got out of those times, and then we went into periods of just extreme highs. Um, and neither one of those lasts forever. So I do feel like this club at some point will get out of it. When we get out of it, I can't tell you the exact year. I can't tell you how many, I can't tell you if it's going to be 15 years. I can't tell you if it's 20 years. I can't tell you if it's 25 years long. But I do genuinely feel that based off of the history of this club, we will get out of this period at some point. Um, and we just have to soldier on through it. Really, there's nothing else that we could really do. We just need to accept it for what it is. We hold the standards that we hold. We know where we want to be. We know what we expect. At the same time, we kind of have to have a balanced scale of, well, we're nowhere near any of that stuff. All of that stuff is all the way up here, and we're like down here, and we have to build it slowly so that we can start tipping the scale back to normal. You can't. It's not just gonna. It's I was thinking about this today, and I was like, it's like if you want to become like a bodybuilder, right? And you're a super weak person. You don't just start lifting the heaviest of weights uh and within a year you become a bodybuilder. It takes a long time to do that. It takes a process. You could speed the process up with some things, but it takes a long time and it takes progression. And I kind of liken it to that. Like, we need to build ourselves up, so we have to do it slowly, and we have to do it in an ordered manner, and it's going to take time for us to do that. Yeah. Um, yeah, but we're down. We're far down. Like, we are down. But I would tell you, Ax, that, like, if you go look at you know, I wasn't there to experience it, but you could go read about it. I'm telling you, there was way worse things that happened to Manchester United than Saliba scoring with his ass and Manchester United. I mean, we got relegated at one point. Like, if that's not the worst thing, or one of the worst things, right? We had the Munich air disaster. Like, it was a lot of bad things that happened, but we always have come back from it at some point in some period, and we've gone back to the top. So right now we are at a low, right? In my mind, I look at it as a whole thing. It's not just about this season. It's not just about right now. We're in a 12-year low, right? For the club over a 12-year period, we're at a low. And at some point, whether it's 15 years or it's 16, 17, 18, at some point we will come out of it. Somehow, some way, one way or another, we will come out of it. I just don't know when it's going to be, but I do have faith that we will come out of it. Um, I feel like if Amorim can't get more out of this squad, I'll be watching Ineos, see if they support him in the transfer market. Will they get rid of a Casemiro, Shaw, or Rashford? Well, and see, when Grace says something like that, that's how I know that she's being real. So I can tell when Grace is being sarcastic and not sarcastic. That's a genuine, real comment. You know what I mean? Um, and but she makes a good point, and that's kind of what I hit on earlier and before, is that this project, it's going to take time to build the whole project to a very sustainable level. But I truly do believe that this project, you can kiss this project goodbye if they don't do what she just said and I said earlier. Because I think Amorim, one, he needs a little bit, you know, it's only 4 matches in. He's in the midst of a season, so it's in a difficult position. He can't get the training like we already said. So I think he can get more out of the squad, and I think he could get more out of certain players. But I think there are players in the club that you just can't. And therefore, those players, and that's why we have to look to Ineos, because it's Ineos' job, right? It's the same thing that Arsenal did with Arteta and Edu and their hierarchy did under Arteta, right? Arteta came in, Arteta had his way of playing. He wanted to play the high press, you know, and his formation. They had players that obviously couldn't do it. They had some players that could kind of do it. There was players there that you can progress them and teach them because they were young, right? And somebody like a Saka who has grown over time with Arteta being there, right? Players like that, they kept pushing, and he didn't change. He didn't change it for the players. They changed the players, and we have to do the same. Otherwise, the project is you know, it's over at that moment. We get to the summer and they cannot move on, or they cannot get rid of a player like a Casemiro, or they refuse to do so, like a Shaw or a Rashford, then this project will not, it'll fail, it'll collapse, it'll fall apart. So they have to do that. Because even Pep Guardiola, who is regarded as the best manager in the world at the current moment, right? Even him being that manager, you can't, there were players there that no matter what he did, you can't just transform that player into the player that fits the system and is needed and it has the highest of quality. That's why they bring in players and they got rid of players. And the players that they bring in, they didn't fit and they sold them and then got different players. You, you know, you have to do things like that. So she has her serious moment. She's right. To be fair to Saliba, he carrying some cake. The duality of grace is right there. It comes with that serious comment, and then comes with that comment right after. So, with the current manager and leadership, I can't see them turning things around for another 10 years or so. Well, I don't think they wouldn't last 10 years, right? So Ineos, I don't think they don't have 10 years. Now the damage, if they fail and it's very bad, right? Like if they totally 100% fail, and it comes to that conclusion where it's like imploded 100%, right? The damage from it could lead to another 10 years. But I don't even think they have 10 years. I think they have about 5 or so to show us improvement. Um, like real genuine, like, all right, we were at this period here, look at our past and look at where we are now. Like they stabilized some consistency in the top 4, something that we've fallen out of, right? Because there was a point where we didn't win, but we were staying in top 4. Then we've kind of fallen out of that into that we don't win the Premier League and we're constantly in and out of the Champions League. And now we're in a period where we're very low in the table. And we were low in the table last year and we're low in the table this year, so far. So I don't think they have that much time. That time, because I think they have to get something done in the next few years. This is their first full season. I think they have another 3 to 4 before the fans really start going batshit crazy, and probably start doing protests and whatnot. Obviously, that could be accelerated or it can be prolonged depending of how the job is going. If the you know if in 2 seasons from this season it goes really really bad, then it's that sentiment will get really accelerated, and people are going to be really really angry, and they're going to start going out and doing things. If they do kind of a 50-50 job, it'll kind of be even handed. If they do a good job, then that will obviously go the opposite way. So uh I don't know. We gotta see. We gotta see. There's a lot of factors. There's a lot of things that have to happen. We gotta see how it's gonna go. But I had the game on while I was working, so I couldn't watch it, but I had it in my ear, and I was going over to like watch the goals, and I was just like, number one, on a day like that, and I forgot to mention this in the beginning of the show because you got carried away with it, but I just want to say, by the way, rest in peace to Cass, um because she was a wonderful woman, and obviously didn't know her, but I seen her in some of the documentaries that we have for United, and she always seemed like a very warm person. She dedicated her life to Manchester United. She was there for over 25 years or something like that. And really, you know what? Yeah, it was good to get the points or whatever. But on a day like that, I just wanted the team to go out there and win 3 points for her. Not even for the table, not even for us, just for her, for somebody like that. And that hurt me more than to actually lose that match. Because of the standings or whatever. When things like that happen, like when Sir Bobby passed, like, you know, we want the team to go out there and win the game for them. It's the least we could do to kind of repay them, right? Um, and we lost. But like, I don't know. We listen. We're gonna have to figure things out. It's just it's a difficult period, and we talked about this before. Amorim kind of started like, yeah, I think he has the correct system. I think he has the correct mentality about things, but the actual work itself is a big problem for the period that he's in. The situation that he's kind of come into. This has shaken things up as well. So hopefully whoever replaces him, right, is the correct decision and kind of stabilizes shit. Uh we need some more stability. But they need to get these decisions right, and hopefully Ruben Amorim is one that can also help in that aspect, bring some stability. Because I hope that they don't end up sacking him at some point later on down the line. I hope that they do their job correctly in backing him, like Grace mentioned before, and getting rid of these players that clearly don't fit the system, don't fit this progressive style of football that United want to play. They have to do it. So there's things that must be done for sure. Why do we think Liverpool rejected Amorim? Um, I don't know. Well, there's something about his price I read. Um, but maybe they just what that and they just thought Slot was better than him. Um, but there's nothing we could really do about that. I mean, they were looking at him. They wanted him. He was on the list. They took Slot, but Slot's there, so it's not even like not like we could get Slot. So it's like you got to get the next best thing. We should sell Rashford, but do we really want that? Like, really, really? I mean, I deep down, I don't, because I want Marcus Rashford to play. I mean, I would want Rashford to be good and be one of our best players, so we could be proud of him and be like an academy, one of us, right? And he's one of our best players, but he is just I don't know what to make of him anymore. And again, I'm getting really tired of the whole one game he's good and he's smiling and he looks energetic and he looks like he gives a shit. Then he plays the next game and it looks like he can't be asked. And like I don't understand that. So, and then it doesn't the perception of it doesn't help because it's like, well, he started one game, he scored 2 goals. He's on the bench for a big match against Arsenal or whatever decisions were made, whatever reasons it was. He was put on the pitch as a substitute to try and help the team, and he came on and he took the absolute piss and he looked disinterested. It's like you can't have that at the club. Like as much as like I don't want to really get rid of him because I would like for him to be the Marcus Rashford we had 2 seasons ago that was like out like scoring many goals and playing good. Uh, if he's not able to give us that, then he can't stay at Manchester United. He just can't. Because it doesn't just go for him; it goes for any player. So, you know, she was at United. Oh, 55 years. Yeah, my mistake. Thank you for that correction, Greg. 55 years. Like her whole life, half her life, right? Um, yeah, that's you know, people like that you won't get another cast. You know what I mean? You won't get another lady cast. So um the first time I actually was aware and saw her was I think it was in the Sir Alex, one of the Sir Alex documentary. Uh she just instantly put a smile on my face. She just seemed like one of those warm, loving people that you would just meet and you could just tell she was a very nice lady. You could have a conversation with her. She was polite. Um, yeah. So rest in peace to her. Um, and I wish they won that match for her. The least they could do. At least they could. Uh, well, listen, we have to spend. We have to spend X. We have to spend. I don't know how much you have to spend. I would imply. It's. I don't think you can necessarily put an exact amount of price tag on it. It's just about getting the correct players. Uh, I don't think for me I can't say like you spent 700 million you fixed the problem because we spent the billion and we lit it on fire. So it's not really about how much we spend; it's about who we spend it on. You have to get the correct players. You have to identify the correct profiles. And we have to stick with and we have to stick with an idea. We have to stick with the sort of philosophy. We can't just like chop and change like we did in the past. Like, those this is one of my things though, like, like because even my father was saying like the other day, like he's like nobody can, my father was like they might as well just sack this manager because like he's not going to be able to fix it either. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not just about him, because it's not about him fixing it, right? It's not just about Amorim. It's again, we are a club. Like there's a unit. Like he has to do what he's got to do with the players. The people above him have to help him by getting him the players that fit what he's trying to implement. And if that's what they want to implement, then you have to build the squad in that manner. And even if he ends up getting sacked, you then have to bring in somebody that plays a very similar like game model to him. So that way you can continue to build on the game model. Even if that manager is gone, you have another manager who has different characteristics and managing ways. Um, but yeah. You guys are way too emotionally attached to players. Well, I just like Rashford. I mean, like I liked him because for me he was like this. It was in that period where I was struggling with, right. It was under LVG. I was struggling with Manchester United being in the position that they were, kind of how like Axe is now, right? And that's why I understand his anger and his frustration. I get it. Um, but to me, that was very, very raw because I grew up and I only knew Sir Alex Ferguson. I only knew winning and I only knew championship. Like, I only knew champions. Like, I only knew, like, eliteness. I only knew the best of the best. I didn't experience any other United. I had no prior experience to that. So, and it was right after he kind of left, right? Like, LVG came in after Moyes, and it was still fairly new. And I was I was broken. I was destroyed. I was miserable. I couldn't watch a game. I was, just full on depression watching that United. And the only bright spark that came out of that was Marcus Rashford because I was so disillusioned with the team. I was so, the team was so dull. It was so boring. And then here comes this kid that I never even heard his name, had to come in because we suffered so many injuries up top that even, who was it? Will Hughes couldn't even play. So they had to bring him in. And he came and he won us that match, and then he won us the match against Arsenal. And I was like, all right. And then I was a little bit interested in it. Um, and I was like, in that period, he provided a bit of joy, a bit of happiness for me in what I consider a dark period for Manchester United. So I liked him for that reason, and I thought he was a good player. But we've gotten to the point where, unfortunately, he's no longer doing things like that. So, and it seems to gone very sour with him. So, as much as I would want him to be one of our best players, he's not, and therefore he has to go. Because I think it's causing too many problems. So, Line says he loves the underdog. I do too. I do too. But the underdog has to show us you're fighting, right? I'm not. I ain't backing an underdog that has given up. Because what's the point? But an underdog that continues to defy things and continues to fight in the face of adversity, I back them till the very end. But I don't see that. from him right now. I see a large inconsistency. We keep going back to his season 2 years ago. No, well, I'm not saying it's an excuse for him to stay, Grace. I'm just saying that, like, that's when, to me, that was one of his peak seasons, right? And if he could give us that, then I would obviously want him to stay. But it seems very likely that he is very incapable of replicating that. Maybe it was just a one off season, but at this period, at this moment in time, he can't even come anywhere close to that. And the fact that you can't come anywhere close to that means that, like, you are very far from where we would deem it acceptable for you to be able to continue and carry on at this club. But I was more saying, like, the 2 seasons ago, he was absolutely on fire. If you could replicate anything sort of like that, if you could show us anything like that, there would be grounds and an argument to keep him. But he's so far from that that you can't really make an argument to keep him. Um, Bin Guy. Bin Guy is here. Bin Guy saying, I've been here before, guys, and I'm certain that owners of United and even Spurs, they must be betting against their own clubs so they can make big money under the table. After all, Premier League equals commercial. Well, big accusations. Yeah, people have said things like that where it's like, maybe we're a social experiment of some sort or something. I mean, sometimes it does feel that way, for sure. I mean, I really don't. I really don't know what goes on, but I mean, I wouldn't even put that again. If that was to ever come out as a fact, I wouldn't even be totally shocked because of the amount of corruption there is throughout the world. So, Rashford annoys the hell out of me, Lyle says. Yesterday he ran with the ball, Ahmad to his left, and this motherfucker dribbles himself on top of the defender and loses the ball. Destroyed the momentum. Um, no caps, please. Yeah, it's okay. You don't got to write in caps. We're gonna read you out. I'm delayed on the chat today. I'm carrying out a lot of thought processes here. Um, yeah, I know what the problem is. The team is in translate. Question for everyone: if every winger or forward profile we have had in the last 9 years was here for 9 years, like Rashford, would Rashford be the main guy? Would he have the most goals still? It's a very good question. Interesting question. Something you gotta give a lot of thought of. Well, I think to be fair, um, I think no. Well, there's obviously the whole academy thing, right? He's from the academy, so he's given a little bit more leniency. He has a little bit more of a connection type of love with the fan base over those 9 periods, right? 9 year period. The other ones we bring them in, and not from the academy. Less people are inclined to give them a period of chance. Uh and that would lead me to the fact of, like, they would never get, like, I get what you're saying, and to your point, Grace, like, they wouldn't get 9 years. There's just no way. Um Performing like how he's performed, inconsistent and consistent, uh, you know, inconsistently consistent, like where he's had one good season and two shit, and then he has one good season, then he has two shit. Um, you know, they if any other player that we bring in kind of did that, I think people would be very much advocating for him to be sold. But a lot of the fan base, I actually think that the majority of the fan base right now, they actually want him sold. I think it's gotten to the point where the majority of the fan base would sell Marcus Rashford, which that hasn't been like that. For basically his whole time here up until sort of past 2 seasons. Um, because again, I think it's just gotten really sour with him. Uh, but I don't know if he would be the most goal scorer, because it would really have to depend on, we didn't get a chance to see them over that period, so it depends how it would depend their form for seasons, because like they would be bad in some seasons, but how good would their good seasons be? Would they score a shit ton of goals? Would they score, only 12 or something like that? Would they make it to 20? A difficult question, but I get the gist of kind of what you're saying. Um, Main argument to keep him. He's under contract and has to agree in order to leave. They can't force him. Well, that is true. We can't just force him out, right? And that always makes it, difficult because they are under contract, and if they don't want to leave, then kind of have a problem there. But I would also make the argument that clubs and teams have gotten rid of players that are under contract, and if if they make if the decision is made that he isn't good enough or that he doesn't fit this project, then he needs to go. And they sit him down and they're like, listen, we don't want you here. We want to sell you. And he refuses to be sold. Then you need to do really the only option that you have left, and that's to freeze him out, like they've done at other clubs, like they did to Aubameyang, like they did to Ozil, like they did to Sterling, like Chelsea did to Sterling. You got to freeze him out and be like, well, you don't leave, well, you ain't playing, so screw your career, collect your money, whatever. But you ain't playing football. And see if they budge from there. Or see if somebody comes in. And maybe they change their tune. But that's really all you could about do. But I would say that, if they are serious about it, then you have to go down that route if that happens, right? And that's really the only play you really have, because there's nothing else you could do. You could terminate their contract, but that's craziness, because you'd have to pay money, a shit ton of money, and you would get absolutely nothing in return out of it. So no club, I don't think, has ever done that, because it's just not worth it. So I blame every club's copying tiki taka style. We have lost our English football heritage. 4-4-2 quick pass, a few times dynamic cross to strong traditional strikers who can outduel any strong defenders. Well, yeah, football, I mean, has definitely gone more, I guess, Spanish way, and that has to do with Guardiola. Um, you know, and it happens because it was dominant as well. Like, not to be, not trying to like necessarily talk shit, but like, a lot of the English clubs, they were suffering defeats to the Spanish clubs, and the football was obviously, their football was obviously beating the English football. And then Guardiola coming to the Premier League kind of transformed the whole league, because he came and played essentially Spanish football in the English league, which the English style didn't stand a chance against that. Everybody kind of conformed to try and either, the only way you can really combat that is you have to play a similar style and outplay them at their own game, really. Um, or they had to change it in terms of that you had to set it up to stop them from scoring. You have to try in a way to stop them from scoring, to really defend it. So yeah. Um, Payne guy says I miss gigs. Uh, and Beck's right. I miss gigs left and Beck's right quality crosses. Well, yeah, me too. And I always loved that, and I always thought it was really good football. And when you go and watch, like old videos and highlights on YouTube, you like, look at the football we played, and brings back memories. Well, because I obviously watched that period. I grew up watching that period, that era. Um, and you just look at how good it was and how how good the understanding, the system of the team and the players. Like everybody knew where they were. Nobody had to look. Nobody had to think. And this is why some of the things that Amorim says I agree with as well. You know, he's mentioned things like, you know, the players are doing too much thinking. And he's right. Um, when you have to think as a footballer, when you think too much, it's delaying movement on the pitch. It's delaying being quick or quicker enough because it's a game of the mind as well as, you know, physical ability. And when you're playing, if you don't have to think and everything is instantaneous and everything is just like sort of telepathic, if you're on the ball, the defense has to do the thinking. They have to think, well, what are you know, where's the ball going? What are they going to do with the ball in this position? But if you're on the attack and you're thinking, what am I going to do with the ball? You're allowing more time for the defending opposition to figure out what they got to do. Um, so we are in a period as well, like that. He is right that, you know, we our players do too much thinking. It's not instinctive. That's why it looks very weird. It looks very awkward, and it looks very bad because they're not they're not accustomed to it. They're just not. They're kind of like double thinking over like, okay, do I make this pass now? Do I make this run? When I get to this, when I get to the edge of the side of the box, what do I do with the ball? Where do I put the ball? They don't know these things. They don't know these things. And to learn that and to kind of get that under your belt, that's going to take time. That's part of the process that we have to build. Miss Neville right back. Yeah, I mean those teams were just absolutely legendary. So, Bing Guy says, why do we have to short pass from Onana all the time? Why can't he just kick the damn ball? Well, you Bing Guy, you're like my father. My father's about in his 60s. And he doesn't like the possession. He can't stand when they pass backwards. He doesn't like when the ball goes back to the goalkeeper. He doesn't even like the playing out of the back. And you know, not to say that it's my favorite because that's not what I grew up with. I grew up with 4-4-2, like you said, direct attack and stuff like that. But I am sort of in, you know, he's much older than me, so for him it was a certain way for a very long period of time. It only has recently just changed in his life. For me, it changed like in the early part of my life. So I I I've accepted that it's changed and that, you know, this is the way that the game is played now. Um, we just have to do it better, though. We don't do it good enough. And I understand why Onana doesn't kick the ball up because you're giving away a 50-50 when you can just keep possession. Like, I understand why they do things like that, but we don't do it to the best of the ability. So it becomes very frustrating. And then people are like, why do we do these things? Because it looks very bad or it doesn't work very well. My whole thing is like we just need to get better at it. We need to get better at passing out from the back. We need because then it won't be a problem and people won't really question it. But when it looks very ugly or it doesn't work very well, then people are like, well, what the hell are we doing? Why are we doing these things? Why did they do these things? And I get that, but it's like, well, we have to learn. You have to start somewhere. You have to do something. And I don't feel like you can necessarily give up on it because pretty much everybody does this. I mean, even teams like, you know, even smaller teams are trying to play out of the back. Now they have lower quality players, and sometimes it's very bad, and they give the ball away and they concede a goal. But you know, football has gone down this route of, you know, when you analyze it from that perspective, it's like, well, you could have the goalie kick it long and it turns into a 50-50, and you could either win the ball or lose the ball, or you can kick it out from the back, short pass, and you keep the ball. The ball is in your possession. You're going to get pressed, but you got to get out of that press, and then you have the ball. And it's guaranteed that you're keeping the possession. You're getting possession more of the times if you do it efficiently. Our problem is we don't do it efficiently. We give the ball away cheaply. So we got to learn how to get that down as well. So if we want someone gone, don't play him. He will eventually go. No way Rashford sits in the reserves for the next 3 or 4 years. Well, I agree. If they don't want to leave, that's the only option you got is to freeze them out and not play football, and they will eventually break because they always break. There's been so many clubs in so many different leagues that have frozen out a player, and maybe it goes on for 6 months, but at some point, they go. I am curious though, because there has always been this thing that has been speculated that there is a feeling that there is something in Marcus Rashford's contract that if this guy does not play or he does not start or some shit like that, he is getting paid extra money. And they must know about this. Well, obviously they would know about it because they run the club, so they know what's in his contract. And the only thing that would completely screw us in that situation is if he is getting X amount for either not playing or not hitting a certain amount of minutes, per week or per match or some shit like that. Because if you freeze him out, not only are you giving him his wage for not playing, but now you're also paying him even extra money for not playing. And I have a very strong concern about that because the people that gave Rashford the contract was Richard Arnold and co, and they are morons. And they would do something like that because they are all about marketing and money. And they were like, Marcus Rashford is our superstar in terms of commercial. We can market him to anything, right? And therefore he's our superstar. It had nothing to do with how good he was on the pitch. It was just that he was highly popular, and he's came through the youth academy. Therefore he's highly marketable. Therefore he's our superstar. And they treated him like so in his contracts, which is why he has such a high wage and etc. etc. Right? And I have a big concern that there is something in his contract about getting paid a certain X amount of money extra for not hitting either a certain amount of minutes or something like that. So, if that is true, that there is something like that, then that is a very big problem for us because that will make it way harder, way harder to get rid of him. Because he has all the power in his hands then. There's nothing you could really do. He would literally sit there and get paid that money until and he can drag it out for as long as he wants. So but honestly, if United were winning every week, what the frick would we all moan about? Well, we would find things to moan about. I remember when Fergie was there, and we would moan, not to the degree that we moan now, but we would moan, why is he starting this player? I don't like that player. Why does he do that? Why does he keep playing this guy? Stuff like that. Stuff like, normal shit that football fans moan about. We moan about everything, right? But that's what we are. We're fans. Get to moan. We're allowed to moan. But no, we would find shit to moan about for sure because it was there when Fergie was there. So it would be there if we were winning every week as well. It wouldn't be to the extent that it is now because right now it's like, see, to me, that's more like positive moaning where we're like in a good place and we just want like even more, better. So we moan and we're like, well, he should play that player over that player. I don't understand why he keeps starting, John O'Shea, or I don't understand why he starts Park Ji-sung over this guy. But we're in a positive light. Right now, we're in a very negative spot. Things are going very bad. And we're moaning on top of it. So it's like two different moanings. I see it. Imagine being benched for 350K a week near the end of your career. Why not? Well, yes. But many players get paid a high wage and they're near the end of their career, and um they also well listen, the thing about Rashford is the people that are around him, which a lot of people have talked about as well, and they suspect aren't there for his best interest. He clearly has people that push up his brand, that have created a brand for him, right? MR10 and this public image that he doesn't seem to necessarily fit in terms of his personality. But there's the brand that they capitalize because he's a footballer and et cetera, et cetera. The brand people will be highly concerned when Marcus Rashford is not playing matches and therefore is not relevant in football anymore. Because sure, he's getting paid, and sure, Rashford will be like, okay, I'm getting paid, I'm not playing. And part of Rashford, you would like to hope, since he's a professional footballer, right? At least part, and you would say that he's not 110% a mercenary, because a mercenary would only give a fuck about the money and they don't care about if they play or not. Um, you would say part of Rashford, if we'll give him the minimum and say 50% of him would still want to play. Like he's gonna be upset that he's not actually playing football, in any aspect. The brand people that are around him, his team, will then become concerned that he's not playing, because when you're not playing, you're just going to be in the background. You can't push the brand and grow the brand because your brand, your player is not playing on the pitch. Therefore, he's falling into irrelevancy in terms of Marcus Rashford, the footballer, the brand. So they'll be extremely concerned. They'll start getting in his ear and be like, listen, we know you're getting paid and all this shit, but like, we really think like you need to like go play, because like your public image as a footballer is suffering. You're you're getting less attention, less traction. Nobody's talking about you. Nobody's paying attention to you because you're not on the pitch anymore. You're not playing football. So there could be that aspect as well. That could also, and like Gray said, but Rashford wouldn't want that, so he probably will leave. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there would be a period where he would hold out, probably due to, being angry, and only some time would heal that. And then also, I think that the people around him that push his brand would start getting in his ear and be like, Marcus, listen, like, we understand you're upset and whatever, but you really need to go, because you're being held back now and you're suffering, not just off, you're suffering off of the pitch as well because of this. So even Jordy Cruyff looked like a decent player in that team. That was the thing, right? Wasn't he one of the most senior players at the time? I think he was. Euro 2024, Spanish sucker punched us playing 4-4-2, and and we won the Euro. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, that too. I remember. Well, that was me, Lyle. That was me. I would watch the matches and I'd be like, and I was younger, so I appreciate Park Ji Sung a lot more now. But at that time, I was a kid, and I judged players based on like, you know, sort of the flair, like the Roonies. Number one, I like the goal scorers a lot more, but like, you know, the Roonies, the Ronaldos, I'm like, those are the best players in the world. I was like, those players, they play all the time. And I'd look at somebody like Park Ji Sung and I'm like, he got no skills to him. He got, but obviously now I appreciate it because the dirty work that he did. I wasn't an appreciative person of the dirty work of being done in the midfield at the time. So to me, of me being like 8 years old, 9, 10 years old, and I'm like, why does he keep playing Park Ji Sung? I was like, I hate that guy. It's like, I love Scholes because he Scholes and he does like crazy shit, right? And I'm like, Scholes, play Scholes and play this guy. Giggs is this, and they got flair and they got talent. And like he would play like Park Ji Sung, and I'm like, I don't understand why he starts this guy. Why does he play this guy? I was like, what does he do? Uh, and that was just me being a kid, but yeah, like I remember things like that. Or he'd start like John O'Shea, and I'm like, what the? Or he'd start like Wes Brown. Why the fuck is he starting Wes Brown? I was like, don't start Wes Brown. Bring him on as a sub. Like I was like, why Wes Brown? I was like, Wes Brown's not good. I remember all that. So Dan, average director of football, not qualified for Man United level. Could have got Paul Mitchell. Well, apparently Paul Mitchell ain't that good either. He's had his fair share number of problems. They didn't go for him either. Even though the fans look at it from the outside and they're like, look at Paul Mitchell, look at the work that he's done, look at the players that he's gone. Is Paul Mitchell still available? Because wasn't he gonna go somewhere and he ended up not going there? So is he still out of a job, or is he gone somewhere? If he's frozen out, the PFA will get involved. Well, I mean, I haven't seen them get involved in cases like Sterling and Aubameyang and Mesut Ozil. But maybe they would do it for him, because he's English, and he's got some power. So just like they should have done with Schweinsteiger under Mourinho. Yeah. We would moan, why is he playing Jemba Jemba? Well, yeah, shit like that. I always understood why Park would play. Well, I was a kid, so like I didn't analyze football to the greatest extent, right? I was a child, so I would look at it like I had a very basic view of football at that time, at that age. Like he's got no skills, he doesn't score goals, he doesn't make assists. Like, it was like very basic. So like I didn't like analyze, I didn't like watch, you know, him doing those things. I'm just like, he doesn't get assists, he doesn't get too many goals, he has no skill moves. He played the game fairly simple and did a lot of the dirty work, and he had a good work rate and stuff like that, right? So like I didn't appreciate those things as a child. I was more about like who's scoring goals, who's putting in these beautiful crosses to the goals, these wonderful passes, stuff like that. Um, who's like the strongest defender we got, like like Rio and Vidic, where like it was just like a wall. They were warriors, they were battlers. I was like, I want those guys. Like, I don't want the other guys. They're nothing like them, you know? um, who is R10? MR10. MR10. Marcus Rashford 10. That's his brand. That's what he's labeled as. That's what they created for him. Like, CR7, like they made MR10, Marcus Rashford 10. That's what his brand is. His brand is known as that. Like, that's what they push to people. Can you all imagine if Fergie was still young enough to be in charge of the club? He would never tolerate so many players and agents bullshit behaviors. No chance. He wouldn't. The problem is that, and he always spoke about this, is that football has clearly football has clearly moved in a different direction, especially with the social media and stuff like that. Like he didn't have that. um when I watched the Beckham documentary, um that aspect, that dynamic of like Ferguson was very worried about David Beckham becoming this sort of like this celebrity footballer. There wasn't really anybody like that. They had other problems like drinking problems and stuff like that going on in the culture and stuff like that. But there wasn't anybody that was a footballer that was considered like a celebrity, like the celebrities, like celebrity. And it bothered Ferguson very, very much, and he didn't like that. He didn't want a player like that on his team. He thought it was a problem. He thought it was distractions. Um, he didn't think it was good for the footballer as a footballer, not as the human, but as the footballer. And that was the first instance where they really had to deal with something like that. Nowadays, because of social media and like every player, if you go to a big club, almost like every player has their own little version of David Beckham to a certain extent. Like you become a brand regardless. You have a certain amount of Instagram followers, social media, you make money off of that. Companies come to you, they want you to sponsor their products because of how many followers you have, and you have all these eyes. And like football has changed so much that like he wouldn't stand for it, but would football allow him to do the things that he did to fight against it? Because really do feel like he wouldn't be able to, he wouldn't last in today's time. He wouldn't be able to last because he would be clearly against those things, and it would just go very very sideways. I don't think he would be able to get a hand. It's gone above him, and it's gone above like the club to a certain extent. It's such like an outside force, and it's so like uncontrollable that there's only like so much you could really do about it. You know, for him it was a lot easier to manage back then. Now it's like turned into this monster. Um, it's really uncontrollable. Players like Park and Fletcher win you championships. Well, they absolutely do. They're very important to the team, and they do a very important job. And they play for the team. You know, they play for the team. They do work on the pitch, the betterment of the team. It ain't for them. Um, you need players like that. You need players like that in your team to win. Those to me, those are the best guys. The guys that play for the team. If you play for yourself for all the glory, I actually don't really like that in a player. Yeah, I don't consider that a good quality. Unless you are so like the only exceptions are people like Ronaldo and Messi, because they can play so much for themselves that it ends up helping the team anyway. Like the sheer fact that Ronaldo and Messi can pick the ball up and score 3 goals in a match, they will literally win you the game. Um, but you have to be able to score 3 or 4 goals in a game. You will literally have to take your team down from 2-0, your team playing like shit, and then you literally just go and basically carry your whole team on your back and score 3 goals and score a hat trick, and you win your team. You win your team the match. You know that's kind of but they're two out of the thousands and thousands of players. There's nobody like them. Nobody's doing things like that. Evans, Rooney, all the superstars back then, their attitudes were fantastic. Well, they understood what it was. You know what I mean? I'm sure they had their own problems. I'm sure some of them aren't good people. And maybe they had shitty aspects to their character. But when they went on the pitch, they understood what it was. It was time to do a job. And they got that, and they went on there, and regardless of what was going on outside of that pitch, when they stepped onto the pitch, all of that shit was gone because it's time to do a job for Manchester United. And it wasn't about them, it was about the club. And they understood that they represented something bigger than them. And they were in an opportunity to be at a place where they were lucky to represent that thing. Now it's much more harder because again, players are their own brand. And their own brand, it doesn't have to even do anything with football. I mean, there could be a footballer that ain't even that good, but they are very just popular on social media, and therefore, like, they're like, yo, I'm really popular. People love me. And I ain't even that good if like, you don't have to be Ronaldo, or Messi. You don't have to be that good. And you can be very popular social media wise. So it blurs the lines a lot for sure. Um, Wes Brown has 2 Champions League medals. He absolutely does. How Ineos hire Dan and fire him? Well, they hired him. And there was problems between, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Sir David Brailsford, Jason Wilcox, and then Dan Ashworth. And Sir Jim didn't feel like he was doing the best ability of his job, and so they fired him. And that's pretty much it. I mean, listen, I talked about this. I'm pretty sure it was like either the day before Ten Hag got sacked, or or the day before that. It was right around that time, and I was talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and I said, if you want, or if you have any time, literally just go look at Sir Jim Ratcliffe's all his businesses, and look at the people that he hired and then fired. Like, he's known to do this, and I said, like, he is ruthless in a certain aspect. Like, this guy will bring you in, and he will fire you if he doesn't think that you are doing a good job. Like, and he doesn't think that you're doing the job that you're supposed to. Even if you've done a good job for a certain X period of time, and now you're no longer doing a good job, he will sack you. And listen, he's been very successful at building businesses in that manner. Can that translate to football? Maybe. I mean, football is half a business at the very least, so maybe it can still work the same way. Maybe you have to make some adjustments, but I'm not. It was surprising because there was no indication that there was these sort of problems. But in the grand scale of things, I'm not surprised after the information that we got that this stuff, that there was these problems going on behind the scenes. I'm not surprised that Sir Jim Ratcliffe sacked him. And I'm not 100% against it, because again, we are, as the fan base, have called for ruthlessness from Manchester United. This to me is ruthless. It absolutely is. And we can't really have it both ways. Like, we're either going to be ruthless or we're not going to be ruthless. The only thing is that they got to get the next appointment right, because you can't keep doing this, is the problem. It would be the issue. You can't go and sack, 3 sporting directors in 3 years. Like, you can't do that. That can't happen. But listen, he bring him in. He thought he was the right guy. For whatever reasons, they thought he was the right guy. They liked certain aspects about him. They worked with him closely. He got a first-hand experience of it, and he was like, you know what? He was like, I was wrong. He was like, I don't like the things that this guy's doing. He's doing more bad things than good things, in his opinion, and therefore he got rid of him. But now you got to correct it. He's got to correct it. So I'm going to hold the final judgment, until we get the replacement and we see what happens with the replacement. If he gets a replacement, the replacement starts doing a shit job, or the replacement ends up getting sacked, then I'm gonna have to start going more at them, because it's like, well, then what the fuck are you really doing? You know what I mean? You've hired 2, you've sacked 2 in 2 years, or two seasons, whatever. And what's going on here? But again, like, I don't expect them to get everything right off the bat, but they have to, if you make a mistake, you address the mistake and then you correct it. But you have to make sure that you actually correct it and not keep making mistakes on top of mistakes. So they're still early into it. So let's see. Eric in chat, I'm out of here. Wallah's out of here. Yeah, we're gonna get going too as well. We ought to get some top Premier League proven players, not from overseas all the time. Well, yeah, we do need a mixture of it. But it's a little bit difficult nowadays, more so than in the past, because the past you were able to poach players from clubs, like a Leicester City, or like a Brighton, or or a Brentford, for example. And it was easier to get those players. Now it's a little bit harder because every team has a lot more money, and they're not so desperate to really get rid of those players, which makes them far more expensive. Well, we could use a good mixture of that, because I think it would help, right? Like, we know how they play in the league; they're adjusted to the league, and they should fairly. You would say that they should fairly translate quite well, but I mean, we've seen, somebody like Maguire come from Leicester to United. He had a torrid time, f- you know, for a number of years. He's been better over the past, last season and this season. Um, but he had a very rough time. Mason Mount is one still yet to be determined, more so because of his injuries and he's not constantly available. So, you know, we don't know how that's going to go, but I still feel like he's a talented player and he adds some value, but he needs to stay available. So, it doesn't always 100% work. Again, you have to identify the correct profiles at the end of the day. So, um, should have bought Harry Kane. Well, yeah, I feel like we should have. Well, I wanted them to. I wanted them to get him. And they didn't, and they said he was too expensive. But then, it, if I'm not mistaken, was that not the same window where we buy Anthony in that window, and then we didn't buy Kane, or did we buy Anthony the one before, one after, whatever it was? Because like the whole thing was like they were like Kane's too expensive and we can't get him. But then I'm pretty sure didn't we go and we spent 85 million on Anthony? So it's like he wasn't actually too expensive because you spent all that money on Anthony when you could have just got Kane. And it was like that logic doesn't make sense because it's like Kane is fucking established striker. And he's gonna score you goals and he's been playing in the English league his whole life. So he's gonna be fine. And then you went and you spent 85 million on a young Brazilian winger that plays in the Dutch league. Like why? I am telling you early on, Ineos will make it bad. Ask the Nice fans. Well, the Nice fans, I've seen what the Nice fans say, and I've heard their concerns. Um, and I take that into account, and I do keep it in the back of my head because I know what they've done with managers, and I know what they've done with some of the people in charge of the club per se. My hope is that they don't replicate those mistakes that they did there. Obviously, they've done good things there, but they've made many mistakes there, and I would hope that they don't replicate it. Otherwise, they didn't learn from their mistakes. Also, Nice is Nice and United is United, so it's two different beasts. But um, that was really their first step into football in a major league. And they obviously made some bad decisions. So hopefully they don't do a similar thing at United. I would hope that they learn lessons from that and they don't replicate that at United. That's what I'm hoping for. So I don't know. I hope they don't, but we bought Hoyland instead. Oh, it was Hoyland. Anthony was in. Oh, okay. Yeah, but still, didn't we pay a lot of money for Hoyland anyway? Like, even so, didn't we pay like a good amount of money for Hoyland? Pay like, didn't we pay like forgot how much it was. Rasmus Hoyland. Yeah, we paid 64 million pounds plus another 8 million pounds in add-ons. So, so we couldn't buy Kane. I guess because they wanted a, just because they wanted 100 million, another 40 million. We couldn't get 40 million somehow. I don't know. I don't know. That time was just a. Again, that was the time with Richard Arnold and shit. Like who knows what the fuck they were. To my surprise, I actually don't really understand it because it's like they're all about like marketability and shit. Why wouldn't you go and get Kane? Kane is Kane. He's so highly talked about, and like you bring him to United would have been like a huge transfer, and like could have marketed the shit out of it, and you could have sold the shirts. So very puzzling. So maybe they really, really just didn't have the money for it. And as much as they wanted to do it, they like literally couldn't do it. But again, then I would argue that, well, if they were smart, they would have sold one or two players, but they were so incompetent that they weren't able to sell the one or two players to raise an extra 40 million to buy Harry Kane. I don't know. That whole thing was always fuzzy, and they wanted younger. Looking at the Kane, well, Kane wanted to come. Kane was ready to come. Kane wanted to stay in England. Kane wanted to. He would have came to United. Um, but if we were out, then it was only Bayern was there, and Tottenham were willing to get. Tottenham were willing to sell for a little bit less than they were gonna sell to us. Like that fee that Bayern paid, we weren't paying that fee. They were gonna make us pay higher because they're selling directly to competition in the Premier League. They sold them outside of the league, so they took a little bit less than what they wanted us to pay. So sincerely, Kane is too old for what we need. Plus, Tottenham weren't going to sell him to the club. Well, I think they would have sold him. Um, I think they would have sold him to us if we met what they asked for, which is a little bit north of 100 million. And Kane could have made it a problem for them as well because he was in the last year of his contract. And if Kane told them, "Well, I ain't going to Bayern. I want to go to United," I mean, they would be forced into kind of selling us because then it would be, well, you lose him for free in a year, or you take the money that United offers you and you sell him to United, even though you don't want to sell him to United. The problem is that we didn't have the money, or we couldn't come up with the money, and therefore Kane was kind of aware of that, um, or was made aware of that like like United aren't going to be able to buy you because they don't got the money to put in the offers. So can't really hold out. Stephanie's joined us right at the very end. Kane would have likely saved Eric Ten Hag's job. Well, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. We struggled to score. We struggled to score goals, and I don't think all the time. I mean, maybe it would have helped because maybe we could have gotten points. It could have had impacts, but in matches where we lost games, and dropped points, so maybe it could have helped them. But we also struggled to 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 create good opportunities for the strikers. So I don't know if we would have been able to create better chances or score more goals. I think we would have scored more goals, but I don't know if we would have scored the amount of goals maybe needed to really keep Eric Ten Hag in a job. Um, I don't know. You never know because it didn't happen, so it's all speculation at that. Pick up yourself, Stephanie. Um, she joined us. Yeah, better late than never. Better late than never, of course. But unfortunately, we are going to get out of here because it is getting quite late. I got some things to do. Stephanie said she spent the day trying to avoid football, finally gave in. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's bad. Max saying he's so disappointed with the team manager and leadership. Well, yeah, I mean, right now it's not a positive thing, right? So I get you, Axe, and I understand the disappointment. Um, and we just need to we need to see if we're going to turn it around. Really, we need to see if we're going to fix it. This it's unsustainable for it to stay in this way. And we got to just hope that they find their way. There's only so much. It's really out of our hands, Axe. It's out of our hands, unfortunately. As much as I think we would like for it to be in our hands, it's out of our hands. I mean, we don't control the club. We can't do anything. We can't make any changes. Um, we don't own the club. Um, the only thing we really have is hope. I guess that's the position that we're in as Manchester United fans. We have nothing else to really do. We protested the Glazers. Well, I don't know. I don't even know how many years it's been. Um, And I really felt like we had a big opportunity when they were looking to, they weren't going to sell, but they were looking for partial investment. I felt like we had a big opportunity there, but I think we failed that test as a fan base. Um, I still do believe that. Uh, Maybe an opportunity arises itself at some point because listen, at the end of the day, Manchester United, uh, we're technically in a bad financial position. And if this thing with Ineos goes very wrong, and it gets worse, and it gets much worse, then the club will be in a much worse position financially, where very bad things can happen. I don't think we necessarily want, we don't want to see that, and we don't want that. But if very bad things start happening to Manchester United, um, maybe it gets so bad to the point that the Glazers go, well, fuck this, we're out because this has hit absolute rock bottom, and we don't want this anymore. This is essentially, we've killed this thing that once was a great cash cow for us. We've killed the cow, and we are no longer reaping anything from it. Therefore, it's completely useless to us, and they'll toss us aside like a used condom, which is very bad, of course. And I don't actually want to be in that position, but maybe good would come out of that in the end, in the long run. The players are lucky that Axe isn't in charge, otherwise cashing their secret allowance check. Well, yeah, but I mean, listen, today I seen that, I don't know how accurate it is because somebody sent it to me and I didn't follow up on it, but I seen that Bayern Munich have apparently made 1 billion euros in profit. They're not in debt and they're 75% owned from 75% fan owned. And they've made a billion, they've made 1 billion euros in 2024. Like, the circumstances, the differences, they should consider themselves very lucky that they are in that situation. And I'm talking about the fans, that they have control over their club, because that doesn't really exists in a lot of places other than basically England, which is the most commercialized league and has the most money. So you see, there's always, it's a yin and a yang. The yin and the yang as always, right? The Premier League was built up to be the best league. It's the most commercialized league. There's the most money in it, but it then obviously comes with the drawbacks, as we've seen. And there's other leagues that are lesser, but then there's obviously, they have some bad things that go with that, but then they also have some positives that come out of it. So it's all the beer and bratwurst they're selling. Well, maybe, I don't know, but that to me is crazy if that's true. I'm gonna actually go look it up and see. But guys, we're gonna get out of here. Schedule is still the same for now. I'm not able to really stream during the week. I'm not able to stream during the week. Actually, they've made it even worse. So I've gone from doing 9/10-hour days to 12-hour days. They're making us work even longer. So I literally get home. I leave my house at 5 o'clock in the morning and I get home at 8 p.m. Every day, Monday to Friday. And we're also working Saturdays. Saturdays we can't start till 9. Because of residential, we can't wake the people up that are sleeping. It's the weekend, so we end up working till like 4:30, 5 p.m. I get home around like 6ish. So it's it's a bit of a struggle right now. But what I need to check, or what I wanted to check is when we play next, because I want to losing track of stuff. So we're playing in the Europa League on, what is that, 12/12? So I assume that's a Thursday, right? Which is a Thursday, yes. Which means that we play Manchester City. Oh shit, we're playing Manchester City. Jesus. All right. Well, so we're playing City on the 15th at 11:30 a.m. my time. which falls on a Sunday. So, um, we will be back for the Red Devil recap after the Manchester City match. I, I mean, we're playing away from home. We're playing at the Empty Head, so that's going to be a tough and rough game. I hope somehow we get a win. I don't know. Because we're not in a very good period, but they're not in a good period, but they won their last home game. They're struggling away. So we will at least have the Red Devil recap on Sunday. I won't be able to do the one for the Europa League, so we're gonna have to miss out on that one again. And also the match is very early for me. The match is at 12:45. I don't get home for another about 7 hours after that. So that one is far and gone and never happening. But the Red Devil recap will happen for Sunday. Then we play Tottenham in the Carabao Cup, and that's on the 19th. And I'm going to assume that I'm not going to be able to make it for that one because that's on a Thursday. That's at 3 p.m. So unless something changes in the time, which I don't expect it to right now, but it can because they're pushing for this job. And this job going probably till mid-January. So and another thing that has pissed me off, rightfully so, is that I'm not going to be able to do the Boxing Day one. And I've seen every Boxing Day match ever. But because Christmas is on a Wednesday, Christmas is on a Thursday, and Christmas Eve is on a Wednesday. I have off for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but the day after Christmas, Boxing Day, will be on a Friday, and therefore I'm going to have to work. So I can't even watch any of the Boxing Day matches, and I can't do a Red Devil recap for that one either. So yeah, real shit. But we'll bounce around. And then somewhere around mid-January, that job will finish. I'll have a little bit more time to be a little bit more available till I jump onto the next job. So we'll go back to streaming a lot more, until I jump into a new project. Thursday is Victoria. Next is Victoria and then Man City. Yes, yes, yes. What's everyone's favorite type of tree? Money tree. That's a good tree. That's a good tree, Stephanie. Chris Pine. Just wait for my hate towards Amorim after the defeat against City. Listen, I didn't. Actually, I don't think you have to be like that. I mean, let's see what happens. Let's see how the match goes. Right? You don't need to be like that. We need Amorim to do a good job. Grace says I'm going to my first football game in April. Are you really? What is it? Pull a sickie. Um, I can't do that. Because my father is my boss at this job. So, can't do that. I wouldn't do that anyway. But listen, it is what it is. I think Richard said it to me last time. Like, you got to take it as it is available. Because I know what it is. Like right now, we're working a lot, and it's a lot of hours, and it kind of sucks. And I'm not available for certain things that I want to be available for. But I also know that this isn't gonna last forever. And this thing will end, right? And then I'm gonna have plenty of free time, and Man United will still be playing, and there'll still be matches. So I'm gonna have to miss a couple. It is what it is, and I'll be back around for it. So, Axe says if they win against a good team, of course I will drop in. Pull a hammer and a ciggy. Being an assassin is hard work. Yes. Like Batman. I got the day appearances, but at night, I put on a cape and a mask and I go around save the city. So, Blackpool versus Birmingham. Wow. Well, I hope it's good, Grace, and I hope you enjoy it. And really your first match, really. You've never been to any match. This is going to be your first one. Um, kind of crazy. Kind of crazy. I just feel like if I lived over in the UK, I would be at matches like all the time. It's just I've been to MLS matches here, but like I've been to like a handful. Like I don't watch MLS. I go, it's because I was given tickets free and it's something to. They were playing in the championship one. I hope we do win just for Axel. Well, I hope we do win. I don't know, but I think the Europa League we definitely need to win. Playing Victoria, I don't even the last name. That we gotta win, for sure. And then the Manchester City game, we gotta go battle. They're not in a good. Listen, they're I think in form in the last 6 matches, they're in 18th in the Premier League. So in form over the last 6 matches, we're above them. They're obviously above us in the overall league standing, but they're not in a very good period. We're not in a very good period. So I kind of feel like the game is kind of there to be taken by somebody. But then again, it's a derby, and when there's a derby, everything goes out the fucking window, and anything can happen. So I don't really know how to really feel about it. I'm a little bit afraid, and kind of hoping that we don't get absolutely smacked up, because I don't want that. If we lose, I can kind of not accept it, but I can understand, the loss could come. Like I get that. Like I get we can lose. I can see how that can happen. But then it would be in the manner of which we lost. Did we give them a did we fight for it and we just lost, or did we get absolutely stepped all over on? And that's kind of how I'm looking at these games right now. Like, I expect losses to come throughout this season, and bad results, but it's like more of like in the manner of how is this happening to us? Is it a lack of quality? Are we putting up a fight, or are we just getting absolutely trampled all over the place? And that kind of is determining how angry and disappointed I will be when these results come in. But they have to happen for. I'll try and well, Man City match I'll be able to watch. So uh, I'll keep my eye out on the Europa League game. Obviously, I'll be working. Being around 75,000 people in a crowd stadium would. Haaland hat trick, De Bruyne 1 goal, Silva 1 goal, Savio 1 goal. Savio ain't scoring for sure. Haaland ain't scoring no hat trick. Every time he plays a big club, he turns into Ghostland. So I could see a 2-1. Um, but I don't know. Hopefully we pull out some type of crazy win. Um, that would be awesome. But my younger brother and my mom are coming up in April, and my brother wants to go to a footy game. Oh, well, that's lovely. Well, I hope you have a good time. Obviously, we'll be chatting before then, but yeah, I hope that's good. Sounds like a good time. I was just talking to my friend that's actually over in the UK. He's Maltese like me, but he's also English. And was living in Malta, but now I think he's living. Uh, he lives in. I think he lives in and around Manchester. If he doesn't live in Manchester, so he was at this pizza place the other day. He posted it on his Instagram, and I didn't know where it was because I didn't actually know where he was. I didn't know if he was in Malta, or I didn't know if he was in the UK. Um, so I was like, I was like that. I was like, that looks. I was like, where is this? And he said, it's in Manchester. He said it's called 00. He said it's pretty good, to be fair. And I said, all right. I said I'm gonna keep that place in mind because the pizza looked it looked very good. It looked almost Italian. I thought he was in Italy. Uh, and I told him I keep that place in mind. I was like, when I was like, because I plan to make my way over to Manchester to watch United, at some point. And then he was like, well, if you come to watch, he said, if you come to watch the Mighty Reds, let me know and we can meet up. So, yeah, is that. Um, yes, mom, proper English. Yes, I know. That's why I had to say it in proper English. uh, if they lose and play how they did at the Emirates, I go full berserk. Well, again, I can't say for 100% because I didn't watch the match in the manner that I would like to watch the match. But I felt like just looking from the statistics of the game, I was like, I was like, I don't feel like we got necessarily dominated by Arsenal. I was like, I felt like, I was like, all right, we lost the match and I wanted us to win, obviously. But I was like, I just felt like, I was like, it wasn't one of those like, we didn't show up to the Emirates and lose like 3-0 and they could totally dominated. That happens, then I'll be very, very upset. But if we battle it out and we lose, I can accept a part of it. Say Adidas, Eric. I got you on that one. I listen to too many UK fan channels. I listen to too many UK fan channels. It's Adidas. I know what you're trying to do, Grace. I know what you're trying to do. I thought Grace is American. I'm going to the pub for Victoria and City games. Might need company with fellow sufferers. Well, I wish I could come. If I was over there, I'd show up for sure. But yes, I got you, Grace. She tried to get one on me, but she didn't know. She wasn't ready for that. I was ready. See that? I knew right away as soon as I seen that. It's Adidas. No, but the Americans would say Adidas. It's Adidas. Gotta get my Adidas cleats. My Adidas cleats and put them on my feet. Yeah. Cause she asked me to say Adidas. Well, because in the UK they pronounce the word Adidas, but in America, in American English, they pronounce it Adidas. So why do they say that? I don't know why they say it, Grace. I don't know. I didn't create it. I was just born into it. Well, yeah, but like, so in the UK specifically, like in England, like they pronounce Adidas. So like that's how they pronounce it, and I don't know. At least for me, I know in America they pronounce it Adidas. Like, um, and you pronounce it like me. That's fine. But I don't know. I've heard, when I listen to a lot of the fan channels, like when they say Adidas, they all pronounce it Adidas. So yeah, it's very good. It's funny, but I like it. Just like for the fact, like, I've been saying it wrong. Well, I don't know. You could say it however you want, really. I never get too fussed about words. You say it however you want. But one of the things that's funny is the first time that I didn't know, I was listening to Terry. If you guys know Terry Flewers, I was listening to his channel. I was listening to Football Terrace one day, and he had I believe I don't know if it's his wife, his girlfriend. There's a girl named Jessica, and she's American, and they were having this conversation about English and American, well, British and American English. Um, and he told her to pronounce, and he said aluminium, and I've never heard anybody pronounce it like that. So I started dying laughing, and I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "What did you just say?" I was like, "What is that?" And she's like, and she didn't know what he was. She was like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He's like, "You pronounce it aluminum," and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "I didn't even know they pronounced it like that." I was dying laughing. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I had no clue that they pronounce aluminium. I was dying laughing. I was like, I didn't even know that that was a thing. So yeah, American English, that's not a thing. Well, it is because we made it a thing. Pronounce Zidane. Zidane. I don't know. I call him Zidane or Zidane. I literally say it two different ways. I say Zidane and Zidane. Eric, uh, Salford. Yeah, see, I would look at that and say Salford. But yeah, Salford. Yeah, 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 yeah. We would look at that, and that's SALF, so that's Salford. Um, and I have like the New York accent, so it sounds a little bit cooler, right? There's like the people from the Midwest. They'll be like the Midwestern Americans. They'll be like Salford, Sal. I can't even do it. Salford. Gotta go to Salford. Like they say it really. They say it really. Yeah, I can't even say how they. I have to go now. Sincerely, thank you for pulling up with me. I'm really mad I didn't. You know, if that shit. Thanks for the advices. May you live. Well, good for you stopping by, Axe. And I hope you, you know, figure out how to deal with some of this stuff because I think it'll be good. It'll be better for your mental health. So, and we'll talk later. Yeah, when we do the Red Devil recap at the end. People in Manchester can barely speak English, so you don't need to. That's kind of. I've heard some of them speak. Like, what the hell is going on? Because of you, he is now known to me as Zidane from the Tarantino movie. All right, I'm gonna go. It was good. It was a good ending to the show. You guys made me laugh. It was a good talk, good chat. I missed you guys, and I'll miss you guys until next Sunday. Because it's gonna be another week, another long week. I'm gonna go relax. I gotta go to bed in about 4 hours, so I'm gonna go wind down, eat some dinner. Before you ask me what's on the menu, we had some Chinese takeaway and we have some leftovers, something like that. But everybody stay good, stay healthy, be good, stay safe. Uh, and we'll talk very, 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 very soon. Everybody take care. Thank you to everybody that smashed the like button. Thank you to all of you that have gotten in the live chat, gotten involved. Thank you for always coming back and being here and chatting with me. You guys make the show, so appreciate you guys as always, and we'll talk very, very soon, and hopefully United get a win on Thursday, and hopefully we get something out of the derby. But we'll talk about that when we get there. Until then, everybody take care and be good.